Welcome to City Week, ladies and gentlemen. Today my guest is from the Salvation Army. I have on Lieutenant Chris Powell. Lieutenant, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Alton. Glad to be here.
Well, it's a pleasure to sit down with you once again to talk about some of the upcoming events that the Salvation Army is putting on. But before we get started with doing that, there's a couple of things that we want to talk about that have happened over the summer, and one event that just finished up not long ago. Let's first start out talking about the back to school, since the kids have been back in school now for a little bit. You all had a program that helped some kids that may have needed a little bit of assistance in getting back into school and stuff. Talk about that for us, Chris.
Okay, for the second year in a row, we've been able to work with Target, and they provide the assistance to help some kids in our communities with back-to-school items, from clothing to books, book bags, things of that nature. This year, they were able to provide us with 13 cards, so we were able to take 13 children out of our community. We took them up to the local Target in Union, and we took them up there to shop. They got clothing, they got socks, they got pencils. We tried to emphasize on the clothing items and everything because we had some other people here in the community that provided the book bags and the notebooks and things of that nature, so that we could make sure they had a nice set of clothes and all to go back to school with, as well as the school supplies they needed. So we worked in conjunction with what Target gave us and some other vendors to do that.
Well, very good. You know, I think when you're getting ready to go back to school, that's so important. And there was a lot of kids, they want to have that at least one new outfit when they go back to school, and the new shoes and things of that nature. You know, and it's so important that, you know, that the Salvation Army is here to kind of help fill those gaps and everything. Talk about how are you said 13 local students, how those recipients of those contributions, how are they selected?
Well, we try to look for the children of clients to our social services, as well as working with some of the other agencies to find children that they say are really desperately in need. Their parents don't have the money to get it, or they've noticed that the parents not going to be able to provide something to get them started back. And instead of them going into the school with nothing, or, you know, feeling a little left out, we try to get those kids in and take care of that. And that's kind of how the selection process occurs.
Okay, very good. And you mentioned something I want to go to in just a moment about social services, because I know that you all have an array of social services that you all provide here in the community. But before we do that, you all also just finished up Camp Grandview that took place back over the summer as well. Talk about that, and where is that located and how the kids get involved. Okay.
Salvation Army owns a camp up in Jasper, Georgia called Camp Grandview. The Salvation Army purchased it back in the 1920s. This camp sits on about 100-something acres. There's a lake up there, there's basketball courts, there's softball fields, soccer field. There's a whole lot of array of things for them to do up there. And during the summer every year, there are camps held every week, and the community here provides the money through our direct mail, our camp appeal, to send these kids to camp free of charge. It doesn't cost these kids anything. And we send them up there and we make sure that they have a great time. They do all kinds of activities, from swimming to riding on the pontoon boat on the lake, to learning about various different things. There's always a theme. As funny as it sounds, this year, the theme this year was Gilligan's Island. That's been a long time ago, I remember that. But these kids all had a great time. They went up. Most of them were not ready to come back on Saturday when it was time to come back home. And we just appreciate the community helping us out and doing things like this.
Now, even though the camp has already taken place for this year, if someone was interested, Lieutenant, in giving for the upcoming camp, how can they do that?
They can send a check to the Salvation Army here in LaGrange. They can either go online on our website and do it, or they can mail a check to our post office, box 3087, LaGrange, Georgia, and address it Salvation Army. And right on the bottom of their check, 2013 camp, and that money will be set aside for camp.
Okay, very good. And you all took 10 kids up there. What's your maximum number that you can take, you think?
We can take as many as we have available up there. The camp can hold approximately 300 kids.
Whoa.
They're working on over the last few years been working on trying to increase that, but right now capacity is about 300.
Oh, okay, very good. Now, once the kids from here, our community, go up, are there other kids from other communities around the state?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct. Each Salvation Army sends children up there, including our service centers, like what we have in LaGrange, and not LaGrange, in Newnan, where it's run by employees. There's not Salvation Army officers there, but any place there's a Salvation Army, there's opportunity for kids to go to Camp Grandview.
Okay, well, very good. And I know that we've talked about that in the past, and I heard one of the things said fishing. I'm sure I would love to go up to do a little of that fishing. I'm sure it's wonderful.
Anyone that's interested, if they want to know a little bit more about the camp, if they'll let me know, I'll be more than happy to schedule a tour and take them up there and let them see what our camp's about.
Oh, great. So they can go up and just do a tour of it?
Yes, sir.
Okay, well, very good. So that was Camp Grandview. Now, next year, will you all attempt to try to take at least 10 kids again, or
yes,
more?
sir. Well,
okay.
we would like to have more, but we will work on at least sending 10.
At least 10. Okay, well, very good. So we had the Target Back to School, Camp Grandview, that took place over the summer as well. And then a moment ago, you mentioned about some of the social services that the Salvation Army it gets involved in. I know that probably the signature thing that we'll talk about a little bit later on that everybody is very familiar with. We'll get to that. But talk a little bit about some of the social services that the Salvation Army provides in the community.
Here in LaGrange, our social services office provides utility assistance, rent and mortgage assistance. We also have the ability to pay for prescriptions, transportation, in other words, getting someone on the bus back to a place that they came from. There are guidelines that go along with each of these. There are also other things that we do, from food pantry. We have a food pantry over there that we do at our social services office, as well as other services. And we try to work all the time in connection with our other local agencies here to try and help people, because sometimes it's what they bring to us in a utility bill or something along those lines. We as one agency can't fully help them, and they need more than one agency to help them get back on track.
Now you bring something else to mind as well, Chris. You said the fact that you all work with other agencies.
That's correct.
Because I know in a lot of times, especially when everybody's tightening down and everything, talk about the relationship that you all, the Salvation Army, has with other agencies to make sure that there is no duplication or no one is taking advantage of the system.
Well, what happens is we use a program here that we are part of called Charity Tracker. That connects us with LaGrange Personal Aid so that we can see between our two agencies when we're assisting people to try and make sure that we're not duplicating services, as well as with Community Action for Improvement, who is on another program called Pathways. We actually maintain two different databases at Salvation Army. Pathways allows us to see what CAFE is doing, but not only that, Salvation Army in the entire state of Georgia is on Pathways. So I can see if someone had services in Atlanta or in Augusta or wherever, if they're just bouncing around the state looking for assistance. We try to assist everyone that is in need, but at the same time, we don't want to be giving money, putting money in a place where somebody's already been helped in that situation, and they're just trying to bounce around the system. But our working relationships are wonderful.
That's right. Well, I know, having been over to the Salvation Army office there a number of times, and also I want to just kind of mention, I know that the Salvation Army is a part of the United Way as well. And we talk about that, and I had the opportunity to serve on the allocations committee to the Salvation Army. So I know that when you guys get those funding in, they go back to the community.
That's correct.
And talk a little bit about how much is returned to the community for us there, Chris.
Now, in donation money that comes from the community, and as far as that goes, all monies that come into the Salvation Army, for every dollar that comes in the Salvation Army, 82 cents of that goes back into the community. The other 18 cents is what covers our administrative costs and things of that nature. That's a big deal when you're talking about 82 cents of every dollar.
That's right.
Monies that we get from being a partner agency with United Way, same thing. That money is going straight in. That's what that money's for. It's going straight into the community. We use that through social services. And that's the reason I made the determination between donated money and what we get from United Way.
That's right. That's right. Now, you mentioned we were talking about social services, and you were talking about some of the things that you all provide: the food pantry, prescription, utilities, things of that nature. Now, if someone was watching this and they wanted to donate some food,
Right.
non-perishable items, where can they take that, Chris, or how can they do that?
They can bring it by either location. They can bring it by the family store on 202 Church Street, and one of our clerks or our store manager will take it and they'll put it up there in the food pantry. Okay. Or if it's easier for them to get by the church on Murphy Avenue, which is where Sharonda is, they can drop it off with her. Either way works. Okay.
And I think that you were telling me before we came on that I think the store and the social services have the social services part of it has moved to Murphy Avenue. Talk about that for
us. Ever since Salvation Army has been back in LaGrange, the social service and church offices have actually been in the Church Street building along with the store. Approximately 3 months ago, we made the move. My office, as well as my caseworker, the social services office, have all moved to the church, which is at 806 Murphy Avenue. Now, the social service phone number is still the same. It's still 706-845-0197. So we didn't confuse anybody by doing that. We just separated the two so that we could actually continue to grow and actually provide a little bit more parking at our store, as well as have better parking for our social services.
Okay, well, very good. I tell you what we're going to do, Chris. We're going to take a quick commercial break here. We'll come back because I want to talk a little bit more about some of the social services, but I also want to talk a little bit more about the main reason why we're here today, and probably the biggest time of the season for you all as Salvation Army, correct?
Sounds great.
All
yes,
right.
Sir.
We'll come back in just a moment from a quick commercial break.
All right.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We'll be right back in just a moment. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're still sitting down here now with Lieutenant Chris Powell from the Salvation Army. And when we left off, we were talking a little bit about some of the social services, Lieutenant. And I just wanted to ask one more question in reference to those. You talked about how they can make donations for the food pantry, and they can take it over to the Murphy Avenue location or either to the Church Street location. Now, you were also saying a lot of times, I know that we may have people passing through our communities and we don't necessarily have a homeless shelter here in our area, in our community. But you all do have resources that you all can assist people with. Talk about that for us.
Okay. It's not that we don't necessarily, we do have a couple of homeless shelters. They're not run by Salvation Army. Emmaus House deals with the women. Mm-hmm. There are a couple of men's shelters here that I'm not sure their capacity. The closest Salvation Army homeless men's shelter is in Columbus, that's run by Salvation Army. And then we have one called Red Shield, which is in downtown Atlanta, which actually has a capability of housing homeless families. And then there are other closer ones. The thing is, a lot of them are men's homeless shelters. That's the reason I mentioned the family one in downtown Atlanta. But we have these resources and we have the ability to refer them up there because it's within our own internal programs and systems.
Okay, well, very good. And again, we're just fortunate to have not only Salvation Army, but as you stated, Emmaus House and some of the others shelters here in our community to help individuals that have be falling on hard times. Now let's talk a little bit now, moving into what the main purpose of your coming and visiting today. Right. Over on Church Street, you all have the thrift store. People can bring in donations there. They can go in and shop. Talk a little bit about that for us as well.
Well, the family thrift store here on Church Street, all of the goods that you see that are inside the store are donated goods that are brought in by people. Some of the misconceptions sometimes, we do put prices on them, and the reason being is that the money made in that store covers two things. First one is it has to cover the operation, which is your utilities, and then you're paying your employees, which are all local residents of our county. So that's helping in that sense. The remaining funds, what I guess a regular business would call profit, are transferred back into the social service media and go right back into the community. So sometimes when it may look like we're charging a little much, which I don't believe we are, but those funds that's what they're providing. They're providing assistance to our community for people. Sure. And then the other part that goes along with that, talking social services, is that if we have a family that has been burned out, we provide them with free clothing. We provide them with free furniture that we have in the store. free pots and pans, other household items that they may need to get their life started back, as well as homeless people and others that are in need of clothing. That is an opportunity they have once a season, once every 3 months, to come in, see our social service clerk, and we'll provide them with clothing and help continue assisting them to move forward.
Well, very good. You know, again, your motto, or your slogan, I should say, is doing the most good.
That's correct.
And I think with all of the things that you've talked about, the assistance and everything, that you all are doing the most good. And you mentioned a moment ago in talking about the store, which brings me to another point.
Okay.
How important are volunteers to your operation?
Volunteers are overly important. A lot of times people look as far as volunteers with the Salvation Army, they think about the kettles, or they think about disaster, things along these lines. But we can use volunteers year round. We can use volunteers at our store helping sort, or helping put out clothing, or helping our employees move furniture to the floor, or cleaning and straightening out the books, things of that nature. We can use volunteers. I'd be more than happy to have a volunteer that's good on the computer to help me keep our website and our Facebook updated. We can use volunteers in the social service as far as helping Sharonda do some of the filing, or greeting clients as they come in while Sharonda's with another client. And you get back to kettle season. We use volunteers there, and disaster work. And talking about that, just a sidebar, in January and February, we're actually doing 2 training classes at the church over here on Murphy Avenue for people that are interested in becoming volunteers with the Salvation Army. One of them is an introduction to disaster class, and the other one is what they call incident command, which helps them understand how they work with not only other non-public entities, but as well as with public safety on the disaster site.
Oh, very good. And talking about volunteers, Chris, you were mentioning a moment ago, I think that when you talked about Facebook and helping out with your website, there was a group of volunteers that came in and did, a really unique thing for you guys, the Boy Scouts. Talk about that for us.
The Boy Scouts from First United Methodist Church, they contacted us a little while back during the summer and asked if there was some projects we had that they might be involved in. And I told them, well, our kettle stands for Christmas were getting in bad need of being sanded down and repainted. Well, they made arrangements, and about 2 weeks ago, I think it was the first weekend of this month, they came over on that Saturday and spent 3 or 4 hours with me. They sanded all of our kettle stands down and repainted all of them. And we took a picture, which I need to put on our Facebook. I just got it the other day. But they did a great job, and my hat's off to them. We really appreciated it.
I'm sure, because it's coming right up to that time, the thing we want to talk about then, and I'm sure the viewing audience have seen this counter kettle sitting here. Let's talk a little bit about the kettle drive, because that normally starts, I guess, around about November, October?
Mid-November is when the kettles actually go up. We actually start planning. A lot of people don't realize this. Christmas season, our first Christmas committee meeting usually is in July. Oh, it takes time to get all of our locations set up and everything of that nature, but the kettle season is coming up. Our kettle kickoff will be on November the 19th. We're waiting on confirmation of the individual we have coming to be with us that day for the kettle kickoff. And we'll be doing that, and then the kettles will actually go up that day or the next day at some of our locations, and all of our locations will be up and running the day after Thanksgiving. Okay,
very good. And talk about a little bit over the course of time, with the economy, the way it's been. Talk a little bit about how you've seen the fluctuation of the kettle drive. Got that one out.
You got that one out.
I did.
Fluctuation-wise, I mean, we've watched some of the money as far as what the community has donated. When we got here in 2008, the previous year in 2007, they had the kettle drive had raised approximately $27,000. Our first year here, we were at about $37,000 to $38,000, and we stayed pretty current with that until this past year when we took a couple of location problems into play, and we were about $10,000 down. We came in last year around $24,000, $25,000, somewhere in there. So we took a really big hit last year, and that affects what we can do in the community.
Absolutely. And again, we're hoping that this year we can see those numbers go back up.
Yes, we
and,
do.
And I know that you mentioned a moment ago that some of the locations, LaGrange Mall, Cracker Barrel, Walmart, places of that nature, that kettle drive will be
Well, that would actually be our angel trees. We don't have a kettle at Cracker Barrel.
Okay. All right.
But we do have kettles at like Walmart, the LaGrange Mall. We have them at Big Lots, Kroger. We will actually have some kettle locations in Hogansville, Franklin, and hopefully in West Point this year.
Okay. And you mentioned angel tree. Talk about that for me as well. What happens with that?
All right, the angel tree. Angel Tree itself was actually created years ago by the Prison Fellowship Ministries. In a written agreement between them and Salvation Army, we use the Angel Tree term, and what we do is every year we take applications, which those are going on this week, and these angels are for the kids that we take applications on are hung on the tree for members of our community to take those and fill the angels and bring them back to us. That provides a child with a good Christmas. The angel says on there, one need and one want. People can buy more than that, but we're trying to let people know specific need that the child really needs and then a want that maybe they want. And the angel tree itself provides quite a bit. And like we said, there's several locations, but we also have our industry in this community that really support us in this. And quite a number of our industry take those angels and fill them as well.
Oh, okay. So basically you have drop sites, I guess you could say, and then industries that go ahead and take on and adopt an angel. Okay, very. And I noticed you said need and want.
Right.
And those needs are so important.
That's
and then
correct.
that want is just something that they would, I guess, wish that they could get, correct?
That is correct. That is correct.
All right. Now let's talk a little bit, because I know that you all also work in conjunction with the local Toys for Tot drive here as well.
That's correct.
How do you all work with and hand in hand with that organization?
Toys for Tots, which is part of the Marine Corps League, they are the ones that operate this. We have had a very good connection with them since we came to LaGrange. They have boxes around town. If you see them and they say Marine Corps League Toys for Tots, please donate a new toy to them. Where these toys go are not just to us. They also provide toys to the LaGrange Empty Stocking Fund run by LaGrange Personal Aid. And I believe a small portion also goes to the Hogansville Empty Stocking Fund. So you're not only helping children that we see, but these other two empty stocking funds that are in addition to us. And it brings a smile to a child's face, especially when in this time when we still have a lot of parents that are out of work. We still have parents that are losing jobs at this point in time, and it's very hard and it's very stressful.
Absolutely. You know, Chris, I think we've talked about, you know, all of the great and the good that it provides here in the Troup County area, but I also want to mention that not only are you all here in the Troup County area, but you also cover the Heard County area. Talk about that as we get ready to close out.
We cover both Troup and Heard County. We oversee social services in both. The only social service we don't cover in Heard is utility assistance, because the utility money that we have, the DFACS office in Heard covers that. But we do see people for food pantry. We see them for a lot of other different things. And we try to work with both. That's the reason I said, one, we were going to put a kettle in Franklin this year to let them know of our presence and just continue to build on that. We picked this up about 2 years ago. We picked up Heard County. So it's been a good relationship so far.
Well, very good. Well, Lieutenant, a lot of great things going on, doing the most good.
That's correct.
So I want to thank you for coming on today and sharing this information, and we look to get some volunteers out to start ringing the bells, and we can see that kettle drive go up again this year.
That'd be great. And if I could, if anybody has any questions, look at
by all means, yeah.
www.salvationarmylagrange.org. That's our website. You can find out information there, as well as you can call our office at 706-845-0197 if you have any questions.
All right. Well, Lieutenant, I want to thank you very much for coming on and sharing this information with us today.
Thank you very much, Alton.
All right, thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Back for more City Week in just a moment. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to thank you for joining me for City Week this week. My guests have been from the Salvation Army, Lieutenant Chris Powell and he talked about a lot of the things that are happening here in our community, and most importantly, the social services that they provide. Ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you've enjoyed that interview, and as always, I want to invite you back for more of City Week.